Hello everybody, I'm Chris Provost and you're watching Provost Park Pass, and I want to break down the things that Bob Iger has said about Disney and the Disney company in the last earnings call, the fourth quarter earnings call. Before we begin though, can you do me a huge favor? Can you hit that subscribe button and hit that like button? All right, I also have to say this, guys, this is a little bit off subject here, but I was diagnosed a couple days ago with bronchitis. I have a bad case of bronchitis. But I still want to get this video out, so I might do a little bit of coughing, and it's crazy. I'm heavy on this weird medicine that doesn't really allow you to sleep very much, so I feel a little sleep deprived. But I think this is really important. I want to get this out. Let's talk about what Bob Iger said on the fourth quarter earnings call. I'm going to take my business acumen that I had from the last 20 years of working in some very profitable companies, and I feel very proud of my business acumen, and I'm going to kind of tell you what he said and what it really means. So let's talk a little bit about Bob Iger here. Bob Iger started his tenure at Disney in 2005. And when he came in, he had like this magical touch. Everybody loved him. He did lots of acquisitions, did Pixar, Marvel Entertainment, Lucasfilm. And if you go and read this on the Disney website, it says that Bob Iger turbocharged the company's creative engines. Now, that's the term I want you to maybe focus on, is the word turbocharge, because you're going to hear that word a lot coming on this earnings call that just happened here. So it's been a year since Bob Iger has come back as the newly reinstated CEO. And since that time, he's done a lot of things. Let's see here. It's been a rough ride, I think. He's eliminated almost 8,000 jobs as part of a company-wide effort to cut $7.5 billion in costs. And he's trying to build his ESPN sports empire, which I'm not exactly sure. We'll get into that in a moment. And the Disney stock is trading about half the value it was 3 years ago. Stock is down. But investors, they do love Bob Iger, and he's very charismatic, and people like him a lot. And he does seem to have a good sense of business. And they just had their fourth quarter earnings call. And I'm going to break down these things that he said, because he made 4 points. And I think that he might have been a little bit, I'm not going to say misleading, but maybe a little more optimistic. They call it forward thinking, right? So on the Disney's earnings call, the fourth quarter earnings call, Bob Iger reveals 4 building opportunities. He says, our progress has allowed us to move beyond the period of fixing and begin building our business again. So he said, what he's saying is that last year was just fixing it. Now we're into building. Iger continued to say, we look forward. Bob Iger continued by saying, as we look forward, we are focusing our 4 key building opportunities that will be central to our success. And here are the 4 key building opportunities that Bob Iger identified on this last phone call. Now, I want you to be aware that they have to have these quarterly earnings call when a company is public. It's traded on the stock market. It's a requirement. And I want you to know that Bob Iger is super charismatic, but he doesn't just go in there. He's just not like shooting from the hip. Everything he says is pre-prepared. They have a team of writers, and they practice it. And so he's not just saying things like off the cuff. So everything that he says, his prepared statements, they're prepared for a reason. And we need to dissect that, because if you just take everything at face value, every earnings call would be sound like roses and like gold and rainbows. But we have to really see, what is he trying to say to us? And let's figure that out. So here are the 4 building blocks that Bob Iger has identified. First is achieving significant and sustained profitability in our streaming business. It's Disney Plus. Number 2, building ESPN into a preeminent digital sports platform. Number 3, improving the output and economics of our film studios. That's a big one. We'll talk about that. And number 4, turbocharging. That's right. They use the word again. Turbocharging growth in experiences businesses. Then he said, we've already made considerable progress in these 4 opportunities and will continue to move forward with a sense of purpose and urgency, Bob Iger noted. So let's talk about this. The first one he wanted to talk about was Disney Plus, and how that they want to achieve significant increases and sustain profitability in our streaming business. So, and if you kind of talk about there, say, hey, in the call, he was like saying, hey, guess what, guys? In the streaming business world, we actually grew, they said in the fourth quarter, Disney Plus grew by 4 million new subscribers. So people are really excited about that. So here we have here, if you take a look here, fourth quarter right there, that was what they grew from. They're up to 150 million subscribers. And in Q3, they were at 146 million. So they grew by 4 million. In Q2, they were at 157 million. Uh-oh. So they've actually lost subscribers. And in Q1 of this year, a year ago, they were at 164 million subscribers. So when he was on this call, talking about how they increased all the subscriber count, everything's going great. they're really down for the year. They're significantly down. So that does cause Wall Street some panic. I mean, people are kind of panicking, but it is nice that it's gone up, I guess. And they've also introduced this ad-supported option. When people now subscribe to Disney Plus and become a subscriber, you can do a cheaper level, but then you have to watch commercials when you watch your shows. And Bob Iger said 50% of people in the United States chose that option. So the next thing that Bob Iger talked about, the next building block you want to talk about, was ESPN. This part for me is a little bit, this is the most confusing part for me. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing there. I'm sure there's a big plan. I like to think there's a big plan. But he seems to be wanting to spin off ESPN and the sports and like ABC television all into its own company or its own entity. And it seems like everything he's doing is pushing it that way. I don't know why. I've heard some chatter a long time ago that people heard that Apple was interested in buying Disney. I thought that was complete rubbish and didn't believe that at all. Now I'm not quite so sure. I still don't think that's happening, but it was asked on the earnings call, like, is there outside investors? And Bob Iger is just very diplomatic. It's like, oh, I don't like to speculate and things like that. Maybe that's why Bob Iger wants to move ESPN over here to its own company, because then you could offload a little bit of the Disney debt onto the ESPN the new company, and that would make it an acquisition easier or a merger easier for Disney. I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of crazy to me. So let's just read what he said. Another core building opportunity for Disney is taking ESPN, which is already the world's leading sports brand, and turning it into the preeminent digital sports platform, allowing us to reach fans in compelling new ways and fulfilling integrated key features in our primary ESPN offering. We are already moving quickly down this path and are exploring strategic partnerships. I think that's interesting, exploring strategic partnerships. That's letting us know that maybe this is going to be the part that's going to be spun off and bought by somebody else. I don't really know. And help advance our efforts through marketing, technology, distribution, and additional content, Iger said. As we continue to develop our streaming business, the continued strength of ESPN relative to the backdrop of a notable linear industry declines demonstrates the value of sports and the power of the ESPN brand. I mean, he was kind of talking about how, because right now he's saying that ESPN is like this huge power brand and it's really big. It is. But it's had a decline. 10 years ago, it had like over 100 million people subscribing just for ESPN. Now it's about 70 million. People seem to be kind of, every time that the number seems to be getting lower and lower. So I just think that I don't really know what he's trying to do with ESPN. He seems to be putting a lot of attention and effort into it, and he seems to be putting it into its own silo, like trying to spin it off. Maybe he's trying to sell it. Maybe he's trying to, I don't know. I don't know. This is all speculation on my part, but that's kind of interesting. Now, the third area is this. We need to strengthen the creative is film and studio. Bob Iger says the need to strengthen the creative output of our film studio, which generates value through the entire company. So he's talking about movies, making movies, okay? Then Bob Iger on this phone call pointed out that the company has had four of the top 10 grossing films of this year, of 2023, at the global box office. And he mentioned new releases. Now, when he mentioned this is right before Marvels came out. And so he mentioned like the Marvels and another movie called Wish coming out. But I want to tell you, this is, in my mind, I thought this is a little bit, this is kind of like, look over here, what I'm saying. Don't look over here, look over here. Because he's talking about how Disney has 4 of the top 10 films for this year. And those 4 films that he's talking about is Guardians of the Galaxy, came in number 4, with $845 million. And then he has The Little Mermaid at number 7, which came in at $569 million. Elemental at number 9, which came in at $493 million. And Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania, which came in number 10 at $476 million. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about insider business studios. Most people know this. But when you look at a budget of a film, the Ant-Man budget right there was $200 million. Now that's estimated budget. Disney never actually announced how much the budget costs. It's estimated to be about $200 million. Could be higher, probably is higher. So when you hear like, oh, the film cost $200 million to make and they made $476 million, wow, it's gonna be super profitable. It's not. Whenever you hear the budget of a film, you have to times it by 2.5. That's because that includes all the marketing costs and you got to get and the distribution rights and all of that stuff. Everything takes, so it's about 2.5 multiplier on as what a film has to do to become profitable. So if you have a $100 million film, you got to make about $250 million to break even. So Ant-Man the Wasp, if it was a 2.5 multiplier, means it has to make $500 million to become profitable. Now, there's a thing when it becomes a tentpole film, when it's a film that the studio is very confident and they really think this film's going to do really well, they'll put more money into marketing, and so they'll do a 3 times multiplier with it. And that would have been, and I think that with Ant-Man the Wasp, they probably did a 3 times multiplier. That means they would have to make $600 million in order for the film to be profitable, and it only made 476. So when Bob Iger was talking about how these films they have 4 of the top 10 films of this year, I don't know if, I think Guardians of the Galaxy definitely was profitable. The rest of them, I don't know. Because the prices have gotten, everything's gotten so bloated with budgets. I'm not sure if they were profitable. I want you to go back to 2000. Let's take a time machine. Let's go back to 2019. 2019, right before the world changed. Movies were doing great. There were 8 films that made over $1 billion at box office worldwide in that 1 year. 8 of them. And Disney had 6. 6 of those $8 billion films. Disney had 6 of those 8. And then this year, Bob Iger say, hey, we have 4 of the top 10 grossing movies of this year so far. And I think 3 of those are probably at a loss. So that's a little bit kind of crazy. Now, I want you to take another time machine with me. Let's go all the way back to 2005. 2005, Bob Iger, he became the brand new CEO of Disney. And that year in 2005, Disney had a problem. Their movies were bombing. They had one called The Alamo, did not do very well. An animated movie called Home on the Range, the Pooh's Heffalump movie. They all tanked and bombed. And so when Bob Iger came in, he did this. He ended up cutting 650 jobs, animation jobs, in 2005. And he also said, hey, I want to concentrate on quality, not quantity. And he started funneling and not releasing so many films. Well, go back here to 2023, fourth quarter phone call. And what does Bob Iger say? He says, let's see here. As I've looked at her overall output meeting, the studio, it's clear. Okay, let me do that and read that again. As I've looked at the overall output, meaning the studio, it's clear that the pandemic created a lot of challenges created for people, including us, Iger said last week during the Disney earnings conference call. I've always felt that quantity can actually be negative when it comes to quality. I think that's exactly what happened. We lost some focus. It sounds like me, Bob Iger, is literally going back and doing the same thing he did in 2005. He's slowing everything way down, eliminating some jobs, and say, I just want to make sure that any movie that comes out, it's got to be a hit. Now, if you take a look, and because he announced that in 2024, Disney's only going to release one Marvel movie. It's going to be Deadpool 3. In 2021, Disney released 4 Marvel movies. In 2022, the Disney released 3 Marvel movies. In 2023, Disney released 3 Marvel movies. And next year, they're only going to release 1. And I think that they are trying to pull things back. The thing that makes me the most nervous about this, though, is when Disney Studios has to have hits, right? They have to have hits. And when you are under pressure, what does that stifle? Creativity. It stifles creativity. And so they always go to the tried and true practices where they're like, we got to have a guaranteed hit. So we're going to get things like Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, Frozen 4, Inside Out 2. We're going to get a lot of things that we've seen before because they have to guarantee hits. Once they start making hits again, then the creativity will come back. They'll start taking a little more chances. Like, yeah, we try something like this. But Disney's had some bad strings of films here, and it's really been hurting the company. So that's really interesting. So make sure you understand when we talk about how great the movies are. They have 4 of the top 10 movies. None of them broke $1 billion. And 4 years ago, they had 6 of the $8 billion movies. All right, then the last part Bob Iger talked about was called experiences, but that's really theme parks and cruises. And this is what he had to say. It's even bigger, and he wants to, the company has an opportunity to build it into an even bigger and more successful cash flow generation business. Now, why did he use the term cash flow generation business? That is speaking to Wall Street. And what he's saying is, hey, the theme parks, that's where we're getting all our money. We're taking our money from them, and we're using that money to do all these other things. And it's very successful, and we're going to keep making more money. Now, the only thing that makes me wonder about that, though, is a little while ago, Bob Iger says they're going to be putting $60 billion into theme parks in the next 10 years. In the last 10 years, they did $30 billion. And so they're more than doubling the budget for this next 10 years. But I know that Disney's having a problem with their they don't have cash flow. So like, where's that money coming from for them to make those bold claims? I don't know. I think that's a stretch. I think what they're doing is they're hoping that they're going to make some money off the studios and that the sell of ESPN or whatever they're doing with ESPN, they're going to generate enough cash that they can then put it back into the theme park experiences. I'm not exactly sure. So, but I will say this. It does look like he has kind of righted the ship a little bit. It's not perfect. It's not rainbows, cupcakes, and unicorns and posies and all that stuff. But the spending has gone down. He slowed the bleeding. The bleeding has slowed down. And I think it's probably taken him a lot longer than he thought it was going to happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens this next year. And also a very interesting thing here in this is that he was supposed to only do this for 2 years. At the end of this year, they're supposed to bring a brand new CEO in. But they announced it that they've extended his contract. He's really going to 2026. So I think he has one more year to kind of get this up and going. And then at that point that year, he's going to probably have to announce who he's going to be, at least who they're preparing, who's being groomed for this position of CEO. And I think that'll be his priority, but he has one more year before he has to do that. So anyways, I want to hear what you guys think. Put it down in the comments down below. Is this a good assessment? Is this a bad assessment? I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are on it. I just think it's something we should be talking about because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, all these things are great. And I was kind of reading these stats and I'm like, when you start peeling back the layers, you're like, it's not as strong as we thought it is. All right, guys, thank you so much. You guys are the best. And you can stop watching here, but if you want to hear about my funny medicine, you can stay on. All right, yeah, man, good grief. I got diagnosed with bronchitis. It's terrible. And it's happened about a year ago. And so I thought I was sick. I went in and got tested, thinking it's got to be everything that it is. It wasn't. Came back as bronchitis. And the doctor at that time, he put me on this, I'm not going to say the names because I don't want to say them wrong or anything, but he put me on these pills, and it's like kind of like a steroid for your, and it did, man, it opened up my lungs and it got rid of my cough. But he told me, it goes, an interesting side effect is that it might make you angry. And you might get like this, you just have this, you might be, he said grumpy. He's like, it might make you grumpy. Woo! It did not make me grumpy. It made me like furious at everything. Like I was like, like you're driving a car and all of a sudden the light turns green and I'm like, come on! I mean, like, I was crazy. I was experiencing rage. I've never experienced it before. And my wife's like, calm down. I'm like, I can't calm down. The world's falling apart. I was so angry. So anyways, but it solved my problem. I was healthy. And then I got this nasty cough again. I was wondering what it was. I did all the tests. Nothing came up. Went back in the doctors. And they test, sure enough, bronchitis. And so they're like, okay, we want to prescribe this to you again. I said, hold up. I said, last time you did that, I said, I got like, I was ticked. And the doctor, he laughed. He's like, yeah, he goes, that happens. It's very common. And I said, I just don't know if I want to do that again. Because I mean, I was so angry. And he's like, we have another one I can give you, this other type of thing. It's very similar. It's not quite as powerful, but it should probably help you with your coughs and open up your lungs. His only problem is it makes it so you don't sleep. And I'm like insomnia? It's like, yeah. And literally, I've been on this now for 3 days. And I'm hardly sleeping at all, like at all. And I am tired. I want to sleep. And like, it's the worst feeling because you're tired, you want to sleep, you just lay there. I'm like, and then your mind starts wandering. Like the other night, I was literally sitting in bed until 4 or 5 in the morning, sitting there cross-legged, and I was like dictating like a novel idea. And I thought it was like the most oppressive novel. And I finally fell asleep and I woke up at 2 hours and I went and read my notes. And it was just like gibberish. I was like, Colette goes to the bakery. And it's like art heist in the Louvre. And like, I have no idea what I was talking about. It's just so delirious. I was so tired. That's crazy. Anyways, you guys are the best. Hit the subscribe button. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.